Thank you very much. I'm quite stunned to see so many people so late in the day. I also found it really interesting listening to your gripe session beforehand, because when people sort of complain about SARS, you should try to know what it feels like to work when you have to deal with the Department of Justice, like we judges do, where your computers suddenly are shut off for a week, and I kid you not. So don't complain about 2-hour waits. The other thing is, I noticed that somebody said they have to pay a tax lawyer 50,000 rands, and I was wondering what that was for, just a cup of coffee or what have you. I've been asked to report back to you, or to some extent to give you some idea of thinking of our committee, and I will do that to the extent that I can. Let me say immediately that those of you who know the work of, know the terms of reference that we were given roughly a year ago, just slightly less than a year ago actually, will know that it was really the entire gamut of everything which deals with tax. And we sort of decided that the only way we could deal with this was to divide up the topics and prioritize them. I had promised, and indeed we duly did, hand to the Minister of Finance a report on small and medium-sized businesses at the end of last year. I'm not sure why that wasn't. We don't have the power to publish that. We simply have to give it to him, and then he must do what he wants to do with it. And so that report was handed in December, and by the end of January we'd also handed in a report on the normative framework, which we thought would guide us, a normative framework dealing with the question of how tax policy should be governed. In the interim, because we handed those two and we've done further work on both, and in fact tomorrow we're having a full committee meeting to finally settle what would be the second further report on small and medium-sized businesses, which basically would, I hope, address some of the concerns that I've heard mentioned here with regard to compliance costs and the like, and also some further work on the normative framework, which will immediately then go as a sort of second addition to the Minister. In addition to that, we have almost completed a very, very large study pursuant to the OECD's request, as it were, for all nations to respond to BEPS, the base erosion and profit shifting initiatives that were launched by the OECD. That document hopefully will get to the Minister by August. It probably amounts to something in the region of 300-400 pages of work already done, which the Minister will have to digest. And then we're pretty close, I would imagine, again by August, perhaps by September at the latest, to have completed a VAT report. So within the first year we would have done all of that, and that will all be handed to the Minister. We're also busy with a mining tax, which was a hugely sensitive area, as you can imagine, in this context, but that's quite early stage yet, and one has to tread very cautiously here. This is not an easy operation, given the broad nature of the country's position with regard to mining at the moment. And in addition to that, we also have begun and quite deep into discussions with regard to estate taxes and its relationship to CGT. And I would imagine those two further studies will occupy the minds of the committee for much of the balance of the year. Of course, there are other issues which have to be canvassed, including corporate tax, including administration, and a whole lot of things. But there's only one way you can do this, particularly when you've got a committee of part-time people, to do this gradually. But as I say, that's broadly our progress, and it's within that framework that I'd like to address you this afternoon by raising perhaps 5 points. Firstly, I want to say something about the tax structure. Related thereto, obviously the relationship between direct and indirect tax. Thirdly, something about estate taxes and CGT. Fourthly, about